Hello, my name is Jordy Izzard, and I'm an Associate Director of Alumni Relations at SAIS here in Washington, D.C., and I am here today with Cinnamon Dornsife, Senior Associate Director of the International Development Program and Practitioner in Residence, and she's also a SAIS alumna of the class of 1977, and today's date is June 24th, 2013, and we're so happy to be able to spend a few minutes with you.
Thank you, Jordy. Nice to be with you too.
Thanks so much, and why don't we're just going to have a little bit of a conversation, and maybe we can just start with what originally brought you to SAIS.
I was a math science major in undergraduate school, and I found myself more interested in the Chinese and Indonesian colleagues in my lab than I found myself actually in the science of it. So I said, you know what, you're really interested in Asia, so you should look for a school of international relations. And so I considered going into international law or international business, but people assured me, no, you're really good in economics, so you should go to SAIS. So Roger Leeds had the position of recruiting people and was coming to visit me at my campus. I was at the University of Madison in Wisconsin, and so it was actually Roger Leeds who recruited me to come to SAIS. And that summer I had an internship working with the United Nations in Geneva, Switzerland, basically at their secretariat, representing the United States on a global forum related to one of their ongoing conferences, and that was Habitat and Human Settlements. And that was what originally brought me to SAIS, was my interest in international relations, interest in Indian and Chinese culture, languages, economics, politics, everything. And so I thought that the place to come was going to be SAIS. And so I had a background in math and science and prior work experience at the United Nations, and that's what brought me to SAIS.
That's great. And when you were here, tell us a little bit about what you remember of being at SAIS as a student.
Well, I was certainly a very unusual first-year student, and I found that many of my fellow first-year students did not have the background in math and science that I did. So I designed a course, Mathematics for the Social Sciences, and taught it to a group of SAIS students. Basically, I did this pro bono with the support of then the Academic Affairs Office. So that was one of the happy memories that I have of SAIS. The other is that I made friends for life. So people that were in school with me at that time, a lot of us made Asia and the Pacific our career goal, and we are still friends to this day. So I have happy memories of teaching, designing a course and teaching it, of having made friends for life, and of some professors that I studied with at the very early stages of their careers teaching at SAIS who are still with us, including Reardon Rowett. And he's going to have his 40th anniversary teaching with us this fall, and of course that's definitely on my calendar, as it was to go to his 30th anniversary 10 years ago. He was a fabulous professor then, and he's an equally fabulous professor now. So those are some of my memories.
That's great. And when you graduated in '77, tell us a little bit about or a lot, if you have it, about your career and how it started and how it evolved into kind of where you are today.
Well, like many SAIS grads, and I think this will make people smile, is that I, like many, wanted to work at the World Bank. And being an American, the openings for Americans are few and far between. And so I accepted a position working with the Treasury Department and with the Agriculture Department on a commission that provided agriculture and water expertise to the government of Saudi Arabia. It was a joint economic commission. And through recruiting technical expertise in those areas, I was also involved in recruiting similar experts and fielding and organizing conferences, fielding experts for support of agriculture and water development projects in the Middle East. That then expanded to work in Asia, and so I was constantly keeping an eye on what was available at the World Bank, and a position came open to be a research assistant for a 3-week short-term assignment. At this point, I was already a civil servant in the U.S. government, So I called all of my SAIS friends together and said, what should I do? And so they said, take the job with the World Bank. Just really just work hard, make yourself indispensable in 3 weeks, and they will offer you a full-time job. And sure enough, this is what happened. So I was offered a full-time job at the World Bank. I turned it down because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm really interested in Asia and the Pacific. They wanted me to go to West Africa. And so I had, by then, identified a job in Indonesia working for the Asia Foundation, and I accepted that job instead. So my career trajectory took me from SAIS to the US government, then to the World Bank. I took a small leave of absence and they basically held my job for me. I went to Indonesia myself, found the job with the Asia Foundation, then quit the World Bank, joined the Asia Foundation, stayed there for 13 years. I then worked for a consulting firm that had a really interesting assignment working with USAID, and it was called the US-Asia Environmental Partnership. I was there for a little more than a year, and then I was recruited by the Clinton administration to go join the board of directors at the Asian Development Bank in the Philippines, where I spent 8 years. I started as the alternate, which is the deputy, and then was acting director for a year, and then served as the executive director. That's the top job, which has a rank of ambassador. I was that for 2 years before coming back to the U.S. And I didn't know what I wanted to do when I left the board of directors. Really, I just said, but I want to teach at SAIS. So I looked to see what courses were being offered about the international financial institutions, and I didn't see one at that time about the IMF, the World Bank, or the regional development banks. So lo and behold, guess who was on the faculty at that time? Roger Leeds, who had recruited me to come to SAIS. And so I called Roger up and I said, Roger, I've got this idea for a course. And he said, well, let me introduce you to Gordon Bodner, which he did. And they vetted my idea, and so I developed a syllabus. I took a leave of absence after I left the board. I developed a syllabus in Australia at Australian National University for my class on the international financial institutions. If you look at my desk over there, you will see the syllabus that is going to be, which I'm revising for the class that I will teach on the international financial institutions this fall. I've changed the name from the title that Roger and I developed together, which was Assessing the International Financial Institutions, Past, Present, and Future, to be the International Financial Institutions Case Studies in the Search for Relevance. And it's really interesting to see the way that the institutions have evolved. There's a visioning exercise at the World Bank that is imagining what does the World Bank look like in 25 years. All of them are thinking about where are we going, how are we going to work ourselves out of a job. And so it's a really interesting study, and that will be incorporated into the course that I'm teaching this fall. So that's basically my trajectory. I started as an adjunct here, then when Frank Fukuyama became the director of IDEV in 2005, he called and asked if I would be his deputy. And we got along, we were a great team. Now I'm working with Deborah Brautigam, who has also really interesting expertise, China in Africa, and so she is taking the program in exciting new directions, and so it's the IDEV of 2013, 2014, and into the future as well.
That's terrific. And with all of that wonderful career experience, how would you, in looking back now and to current students today and wearing your multiple hats, give advice to current students? What would you say to them?
If you're coming to SAIS, take a look at what the market advantage of SAIS is. We have an extremely strong international economics program. And so you remember when I talk about my own trajectory and advice people gave me, I would return that advice to current students. If you are really interested in and feel an affinity for international economics, this is the best APSIA school to come to, especially in terms of applying what you know to the marketplace. We also have very strong regional studies programs and a very strong language program. And so my advice to you would be to come to SAIS having an idea about where you've come from, what you want to use the SAIS education for, and where you hope to go, because that will help you make better decisions about the courses that you will take, about your internships, and about all of the lectures that you'll be able to attend while you're here, and indeed possibly about some student jobs that you might take during the course of your 2 years here. That said, I don't advise you to work during your first year, first semester. Really concentrate on your academics. Make sure that you feel confident about your ability to do well here. This is a very rigorous graduate school. That said, if you've done really well and there's an interesting opportunity, very part-time, about 10 hours a week, no more than that, then in very limited cases or very special cases, then I support students' ideas to work as it supports their career goals, as it supports what they are doing here academically. So the current advice would be, just in summary, think about the SAIS comparative advantage, economics, regional studies, and language. Also its location here in DuPont Circle. There's nothing quite like it. This is the policy center, especially for international development. And I think that this school has an amazing amount going for it.
Terrific. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome, Jordy.
And we're so glad to have you here.
My pleasure.